breaking your fast with a gentle break of fast meal that I talk about in the book, just basically soups and stews, something soft that's easy to transition your body from fasting to eating, because your villi and your gut are going to be short. Cortisol is going to be a little bit higher because of the hormetic effect of the fast. And basically you'll be really insulin sensitive. So I want a nice segue back into eating with the break of fast meal. I teach how to do that. And then you can have your normal meal. We're doing that in week 3 every other day. So you go almost OMAD, 12-12, almost OMAD, 12-12, almost OMAD, 12-12, so forth, so on and so forth throughout week 3. That's the actual renew. We're working on autophagy and stem cell activation, supporting that, and the longevity benefits of fasting in week 3. And then in week 4, we're loosening back up. We're going back to 12-12. So I see it as like this expanding, contracting, almost like yoga for your metabolism, that I want people to cycle through as many weeks as they need to. And they're checking in every 4 weeks with a quiz that I adapted from questions that I ask patients to really see how they're doing, be their own N of 1 experiment over that time.
If people were only willing to, or for some reason could only do one thing, either eat in the way you're talking about or do the fasting, which one do you think it would be better for them? Or, which one's more tolerant to screw ups?
Well, I would say food. You should do one thing. Because I, as a functional medicine practitioner, I'm not an advocate to fast your way out of a poor diet. So I think food comes first. But the fasting windows, it's quite fascinating because I say that, but then throughout the whole book, I'm citing studies that show you don't really have to change your diet much. But if you eat specific windows, because researchers had to do that, they had to show, does fasting or time restricted feeding, which is a type of fasting, does this hold on its own? If you don't change your diet and you just eat in specific windows, if all calories are the same, if you eat pretty much the same, you have the control group and the fasting group, and the time restricted feeding window group, the fasting group, actually see time and time again in studies, they saw better markers. So there's studies to show that food eating window is profoundly important, but I just know it's exponentially amplified when you actually pair that with changing the food. So if I had to pick, I would say I am not an advocate for fasting your way out of a poor diet. Just focus on the real food there and eat in bigger windows if you're not there yet. And actually, I had that conversation throughout the book. I actually say, look, if you're in week 1 and 12-12 is where you're at, stick there for like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. Like, just do that first. This can be self-paced. And if you're not there yet, this has to be a sustainable change. And this should not be this fast-paced thing where if you're not, you need to meet your body where you're at and meet your headspace where you're at too. And I'd rather have someone lean into it, even if it's arduously slow, lean into it, but it's sustainable. That's better than somebody crashing through it and it's short-lived. So it's all about the heart behind it and the why behind it. And if they get that, their head and the heart right, even if it takes longer, that's better because it's going to be more sustainable and you're going to actually see the changes on labs and in your quality of life.
But what's one of the hardest things about your protocol? Is it the jump from, let's say, an 18-hour non-eating window to a 22, or where do people get gummed up on this?
That's a good question. I could see week 1 being tough for some people because if you're cutting carbohydrates down to like less than 55 grams of carbs and you're getting it through vegetables and low fructose fruits. And I could see week 1, even though it's not a deep fast, I could see the changes of the foods to like a clean ketogenic diet. I could see that being tough. And that's why I say, okay, if you need to repeat week 1, do it. But as far as like the time restricted feeding component of it, I would probably say the week 2 to 3, like you said. I would say that the almost OMAD week, even though it's every other day, it still could be something new. And some problematic as far as their mental attitude towards it. They have to like wrap their minds around it because there's so much. Like food comes with a lot of baggage sometimes, and people eat because they're bored, they eat because they're stressed, they eat because it's just habitual, eat because of like it's their way to socialize with people. So that's a big recalibration that I'm having people do in that week 3. So I have in that chapter specifically, I have these metaphysical meals, which basically just acts of mindfulness that I want people to integrate during that week 3, because I realize there could be a lot of like, what am I supposed to do when I'm not eating? So journaling and meditation or getting out in nature or something like that's like calming the mind is important. So I would say the hardest week is probably week 3, even though it's just a week and it's every other day. But if you had to pick one, that would probably be the sticking point.